Hi, everybody, and welcome to the 32nd session of Mahamudra for the People. I hope everyone's had a good time off. It's been about 2 weeks, I think, since we've had um, the session. Yeah, and it's been a full 2 weeks with the holidays and um, the devolution of Washington, D.C., and whatever the storming of the Capitol means. Um, and so it's this kind of interesting combination of it being a new year, um, which can be helpful. In one way, especially from the perspective of Mahamudra practice, time doesn't really exist in this way that we're kind of trained to believe it does. So the division of time by the Gregorian calendar, the Tibetan calendar, or any calendar, is relatively arbitrary, theoretically speaking. And yet it can be powerful sometimes to make use of these relative markings of time um, as a way to kind of come back to practice, right? So this is a way of talking about Dharma and New Year's resolutions. And so here we are, the beginning of 2021. Um, in a very real way, it's not that much different than 2020. And yet, in this particular moment, I just want to invite the kind of energy of aspiration through the resolution of, associated with the new year, um, towards deepening practice. And so I kind of feel like I would be remiss in not bringing that up in the beginning of the year, that, may 2021 be a year of deep practice, and may this be a year of Mahamudra practice. Before I go any further, oh, no, just kidding. So before we do go any further, I would like to ask us to sit in a little bit of meditation for about 12 or 13 minutes. And as we've done, up until this point, we've been sitting in any kind of Mahamudra fashion that is feeling comfortable with you. Today I will be offering the instruction on shamatha, which is kind of the basis of Mahamudra practice, from Wangchuk Dorje's Pointing at the Dharmakaya. But in a nutshell, allow yourself to sit as comfortably as you can, trying to allow your body to be relaxed and yet focused. Allow yourself to bring your awareness to either your breath, concentrating on every inhalation and exhalation, or bringing your awareness to a physical object in your field of vision, or a visualized object, or the experience of mind itself. And as we do this, we'll hold very gently, very lightly Tilopa's 6 nails, allowing yourselves to let go of the past, let go of the future, letting go of this particular moment, letting go of the need to do anything, the need to analyze. And letting go of anything that gets in the way of resting. It looks like there actually may have been a little bit of a tech issue here. Can everyone see/hear me right now? Hopefully. Uh-oh. Yes, okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Great. Okay, so let's, okay. All right. It's spotty. I don't know who's spotty, me or... Well, in any event, we're just going to try and power through. So, in case I disappear, it's because I got enlightened, and I'll see you on the other side. Um, just kidding. We'll sit for about 13 minutes right now. So, try and allow yourself to come to your practice, and we'll sit like this for 13 minutes. Okay, then slowly make a mental note of what that experience was like. And as you can, come back to the group. Okay. So, just as a refresher, feel free to ask any questions as we move along. You can ask a question by clicking the Ask the Question tab on the bottom of the page and doing it there, or you can also ask a question in the text box. And I will respond as I can. I just want to make sure that everybody, like, the connection's okay. You can see me, hear me. Yes. No. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so I believe up to this point, I went through the beginning portion of this text, including the, just briefly addressing the preliminaries, especially the uncommon preliminaries, those being, it just very briefly touched on taking refuge and prostrations and taking refuge, Vajrasattva, mandala offerings, and Guru Yoga. And then the supreme preliminaries. Yeah, I believe I touched on that too. So I'm going to begin today by teaching on shamatha. And so typically, Mahamudra meditation, structurally, I guess you could say, has a foundation of shamatha, and then one ends up over time, after experiencing kind of a sense of quiescence or stability of mind, one begins to kind of blend the practice of vipassana or lakthong or superior insight in, and Mahamudra is kind of the natural synthesis of both of these coming together. Shamatha is really, it does two things. On one level, it allows us to be able to have stability of mind, right? So we don't become instantly distracted the moment that we start to practice. Shamatha is also a really profound practice for the cultivation of patience, allowing ourselves to become, to use everything that arises in mind, our relationship to our environment, our relationship to body, like the aches and pains and whatnot associated with body. All of these things arise in practice, and in this way, shamatha is super profound when it comes to learning how to have patience with our mind, have patience with respect to body, and allowing this experience of whatever is happening in the moment to deepen. Right? So if we just gave up meditation after the first time we got distracted, we would never go very far with this. The more that we open ourselves to whatever it is that's happening, and to be mindfully aware, right? Not chasing after anything, but just watching. Right? We develop a tremendous amount of qualities. Patience is one, concentration is the other, wisdom, and a very profound self originating wisdom. Um, these days you can find Mahamudra texts that previously really were only accessible to a very small number of people in Tibet, and then even smaller number of people in India. One such amazing text was recently translated, recently published, came out last month. By Carl Bernholz, translated by him, but it's called Sounds of Innate Freedom, which has a pretty little picture of, I think it's Kambala on the cover, I believe so. But this is a translation of Book 5 of the Indian texts of Mahamudra, collected by Choja Gyatso, the seventh Karmapa. And it's a really amazing text. And so, if you read this, you'll get a lot of intellectual knowledge, right? Or a lot of intellectual wisdom. But if we are able to sit with mind, to sit with bodily experience, to sit with emotions as they come and go, this is the way that you develop very innate, powerful, self-arising knowledge. And so, I've mentioned this in the past, and I'll probably mention this until I die. The relationship between intellectual, learning and practice is something that we all need to learn how to navigate and negotiate on our own. We all tend to have different interests in these kinds of things, different capabilities, different abilities to hold a relationship to the theoretical versus the practical, and we need to do what is right for us. But what I continually see is that, and have experienced, for myself, is that the intellectual part of practice, just for me, unfortunately, it's probably because I'm not that smart, just seems to decline over time, and I prefer just being with practice. And I probably read all the time because I am not that smart and need the support of the words of others to make up for my own lack. Nevertheless, we're going to start with shamatha right now. And so, with shamatha, we begin with the points of body. And this too kind of requires a little bit of flexibility on our own part, on an individual basis, not because we need to be flexible, but because what it says in the text is one thing, what we can do in reality is another thing. And we really don't need to beat ourselves up any more than we do. We're generally pretty good experts at that. However, so in the text itself, traditionally they say that your legs should be in Vajra posture or Vajrasana, right? So that would be lotus position, or what we know as lotus position. And so, theoretically, with that, you put your feet resting on the opposite thigh, and that can be possible for some, not possible for others. And so, I think the big thing is that if it's not possible for you, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. What is most essential is that your body be relaxed, and as you sit, that you're seated firmly. Right? They say that the hands should be in meditation mudra, so kind of like this, but down on just below the navel. In this text, they say forefinger what's below the navel. And there are different instructions. You can also put your palms on your knees. They're usually somewhere in between these two. something that feels right. Your back should be as straight as you can make it without it being, artificial and kind of like you're imitating a Buddha statue. Um, that reminds me, I was once in Bodh Gaya um, with Bokramche, and he was telling me that he's like, the um, Tibetans are always like coming up to me, and they're all very curious and concerned. Like, what's wrong with your Western students? All they do, like when they're down at the stupa, is they sit like statues, totally still. And then he said, like, and then all these Western people come to see me, and they say, what's wrong with all these Tibetans? All they do is prostrate. So one is very active, one is very still, and the big piece is not criticizing the practices of others. And similarly, we shouldn't really, criticize ourselves if for some reason we can't sit in lotus posture, or our back, just doesn't allow us to keep it totally straight. We do the best we can. So back as straight as comfortable. They say that the shoulders should extend like the wings of a vulture. So that means essentially like the chest relatively open. Our neck is ever so slightly bent, just slightly, like a tiny little hook. The tongue, our tongue kind of resting on the upper palate, or it can just rest naturally as it is. The eyes, so this refers to the gaze. Now I'm going to diverge from the text a little bit, but here it says the eyes should be half open and should look straight ahead into space. 4 finger widths in front of the tip of your nose, so like looking there. And that can be good, but what I will say is that it's kind of like a little piece of advice. Directing our gaze downward or upward, or something a little bit more straight on, is something worth playing around with respect to what experiences might be happening in the moment. So, for example, in times when we're feeling a little agitated, kind of like our mind is whipped up into a froth, sometimes it's beneficial to lower the gaze slightly. And in so doing, it's fascinating. Things have a way of kind of settling down over time. At other times, when we're feeling kind of sluggish, sleepy, kind of feels like our mental continuum is made out of oatmeal. Sometimes just slightly, ever slightly raising the gaze can help with that. And at other times, staring directly into space in front of us. And in this practice, we practice with our eyes open. If you're habituated to practicing with your eyes closed, you can do that. I feel like anytime I close my eyes for longer than 30 seconds, I begin to fall asleep. So open works for me. And so, Karmapa says that taking such a posture and allowing ourselves to find a sense of relaxation in it, it means that we should try to be as comfortable as possible. Right? Now, this piece is it may be a little counterintuitive, like we know that meditation should be like a way of kind of chilling out, so to speak. And I think, I can't speak for people from other countries, but what I know about being American is that relaxing is really hard to do, especially for white people like me. And so this practice of bringing deep relaxation to our practice, allowing our body to settle, right? Allowing our body to experience rest, allowing our breathing to settle naturally. And to, quote unquote, occupy a space of ease is a really kind of important fundamental part of the practice. Oh, yes, yeah. The title of this text is called Pointing Out the Dharmakaya. This is the one that I'm teaching from now, Pointing Out the Dharmakaya. And so by settling in this way, allowing everything to settle into ease, right? Gentleness. Then we're able to slowly develop a relationship to the different pranas, right, or energies in our body. And there are, there's several, right? Many, many different kinds of pranas. They circulate throughout our body. They control different things like our digestion, our excretion, heat, all these things. Generally, there's one called the downward clearing prana, and so this is the prana kind of associated with excretion. There's the water prana, there's fire equalizing prana, and pervasive. Yeah, and so both of these, or all three of these, begin to naturally enter into the central channel when our body is able to settle like this. Right now, when these winds begin to enter into the central channel, that also increases the sense of light and of blissful concentration that can arise in practice. And there are a couple things that happen. Sometimes these pranas begin to just settle naturally into the central channel on their own, just given, adopting this kind of posture and allowing body to just experience ease. And that leads eventually towards an experience of a restful, non-conceptual meditative state. And then at other times, we are able to kind of force these winds in through the cultivation of a meditative state, which is non-dual and blissful. So, this is all to say that there are kind of like two different ways of approaching this. One is, through really allowing the body to rest, the energies of the body settle. Right? When these energies of the body settle, mind begins to settle in a very meaningful way. Alternatively, if we settle the mind, these energies naturally start to settle and the body begins to settle as well. And so it's helpful to remember that, because sometimes we might have, a general proclivity towards one of these, and if for some reason that's not working, then we can begin to develop a relationship to the other way of doing this, and that can create benefit. And so, ninth Karmapa continues to say, or ninth Karmapa, by taking this posture and reflecting on the points of body, your nadis and prana will become workable and boundless good qualities will arise. Just due to taking this posture, the points of your body, experience and realization will blaze of themselves. So you should take this body, these postures of points and body in your practice. And so, this is part of the practice, is learning how to work with our body. And of course, the fundamental piece, though, is this work on allowing ourselves to settle, be at ease, and relaxed. And so if we can't, sit this way, um, exactly the same way, or not even half the way, or not even three-quarters of the way, it's not so important. What is more important is being able to relax into the moment. So otherwise, people with various physical ailments would not be able to experience Mahamudra, and that's not true. Everybody is able to experience Mahamudra. So the next point, and I'm going to diverge slightly from this text based on instructions from some of my teachers. Having taken this posture, the text says to expel a little bit of air, stale air, and then rest naturally and effortlessly, recalling all of the preliminaries that we discussed in the past, and rest as easily as you can, just as you are. Now, Bokor Rinpoche, in his instruction of Mahamudra, emphasized at this point to do some cleansing breath. And there are many different kinds of traditions. So in his practice, what he suggested was, if you take your hands, right, and you put them on your knees, but if you put your fingers over your thumbs, right, so it's basically like, I have to joke with my kids, like two potatoes, right? Put them down on your knees with your hands over your thumbs. And as you inhale, let your hands open. Hold, exhale. Right, so these hands are, I'm just showing them to you, but they should be on your knees. So inhale, hold, exhale. Inhale, hold, exhale. And so there are a couple of things that you can do while you're breathing to visualize. So as you inhale, you can inhale white light, which represents the enlightened body of all the Buddhas. Hold, allow that light to change red, enlightened speech of the Buddhas. And as you exhale, exhaling blue light, the enlightened mind of the Buddhas. Inhale, white light, hold, red light, exhale, blue light. Or alternatively, you can inhale white light, the kind of absolute Vajra purity of all things. Hold, exhale, and when you exhale, you can visualize, this kind of like oozing, dark, black, thick energy, kind of being extruded through your pores. So this is a process of purification, inhaling the Vajra-like purity of all things, holding, and exhaling all of the junk, right, all of the gunk, everything, all of our obscurations, attachments, etc. And so this can be done 3 times, 7 times, or 9 times, or a little bit longer, depending on what we're feeling. And so Payne asks if the arms here should be straight or stiff, elbows bent as a meditation. There are other practices where your torso should be kind of stretched and your arms as straight as possible, right? But kind of like, our man Kambala here. But that's not what we're doing. So here you could just do so actually, your arms can just be relaxed. Put your hands on your knees, and that's how your arms can be, right? So no big deal. Right? You could visualize it, keep your hands in meditation mudra, and do it without the thumbs on the hands, right? But Bokram J used to like, using the hands and fingers. So that's what I like to do. Relaxed is good, yeah. So again, we don't have to be dramatic. It's not like pulling up, like, I'm gathering all the healing white light, pulling it from everywhere, like, this gargantuan effort, and then, extruding all of the negativity. Remember, like, I think the thing is, and this is actually where I do like to come kind of a referent, rather, to the Zen tradition is this whole concept of nothing special, right? So just letting our practice be easy, free, nothing special, no big deal. Why is it no big deal? It's not no big deal because we don't care about it. It's no big deal because Buddha nature is innate. It's no big deal because our awakening is innate. It's no big deal because we don't have to, torture ourselves to go deep. We are all inherently, able to access that deepness. Right? So learning how to disrupt all this kind of just terribly limited way of regarding ourselves as impure, barbaric, stupid people with who need, others to clear away all the gunk, yeah, no other deal to be bigger or smaller. Just be who you are, right? So just be natural, be relaxed. Easier said than done. Okay, but first, so we start off by doing some of this breathing, and then there are some more kind of complex, slightly more complex breathing purification practices. You could do the 9-round Vajra breathing and things like that, and different systems will say different things about what is more superior than out of all these kinds, and I think what's most important to remember is really there's not a whole lot of difference necessarily. If you can allow your body to relax and your breathing to be relaxed as well, and to be powerful and to be deep, it doesn't matter if it's a complex visualization or a simple visualization. I think one of the things we benefit from being critical of is this, idea that more is more, like just more, give me this big book on Mahamudra. It's got like hundreds of pages, like the notes, there's 700 and, way too many pages about Mahamudra. 736 pages. Or we could do Tilopa's 6 Nails, or Tilopa's Ganges Mahamudra, or a song by Maitrepa, or a song by Marpa or Lama Shan. Like, we don't need, like, more does not equal more. More usually equals more confusion. So that was the points of body. Okay, so now we move on to the points of mind. And so there are kind of two classical divisions in terms of points of mind. And so the first is, and I'm just going to read the text so I don't diverge so much, but do not follow after or ponder the past. And so here we're kind of coming on to Tilopa's 6 Nails. Do not think I will do this. or I should do this, anticipating the future. Do not weigh the present, accepting and rejecting. Within spontaneous, ordinary mind, do not accept or reject, create any hope or fear, or fabricate or alter anything. Rest for as long as it remains in that relaxed and natural freshness. So, fingers, hands extend. So, inhale. Yeah. So, exhale. Inhale. Exhale. So, and if for some reason you end up doing it in the opposite order, you won't go to hell. it's okay. But so this point, do not follow after the past. Right? Do not cultivate, any ideas of what you should be doing or shouldn't be doing with respect to the future. Do not look upon anything as preferred, accepting and rejecting. Within spontaneous, ordinary mind, do not accept and reject. So this is great because in meditation, we want, invariably, because we're still kind of struggling with the stains of a lot of the way that we have been conditioned to perceive reality. Well, think that, I've got to look for spaciousness. I've got to have a particular kind of experience. He mentioned bliss. I've got to experience bliss. I've got to experience emptiness. I've got to experience this or that, or relaxation. And again, this has much less to do with any kind of projection, and more so with just letting go, relaxing. And ironically, it's this letting go piece of letting go into relaxation, into resting, is how the practice really kind of unfolds. And we have to learn how to be able to let go into an experience of relaxation without modulating, without creating a dynamic, without creating something in particular. So sometimes, this is definitely something that becomes more easy with more experience. In the beginning, we're like, good experience. I want good experience, and then we kind of realize, why are you chasing? Stop. So there is one kind of Mahamudra instruction, not from this text, where we're told to rest like a worker at the end of a hard day of labor. Right? So imagine you're working in a field, or back before I became a chaplain, I used to be a contractor, and I did carpentry and stonework and electrical work and all this stuff, and carry 100-pound bags of cement, or big pieces of plywood or sheetrock, upstairs to work in apartments. And so, as a result, I'd be exhausted. I'd come home, especially on a Friday, sit down somewhere, and just that level of rest, so profound. So how can we rest like that? Go for a really, really long walk or something, or a hike. Our body be kind of tired out, and then sit down and rest. Right, so how to settle into our practice with that level of just ease. There's another instruction along similar lines that I like, but some folks at Tricycle thought it was mean. But to rest like a bee stuck in honey. And so, imagine you're a buzzing bee and, you're doing all your bee work, and then all of a sudden your wings end up stuck in honey and you're just totally stuck. It's at a rest like that. So stillness, relaxation, ease. So, this is, this is the way we sit in this tradition. Other traditions might be a little different. The Western mindfulness traditions tend to be a little different. And that's okay. But while we do this meditation, to allow everything to just relax. And we'll see how they're different over time. Because they are. Okay, and so then so those are the general points of mind, right? So, really nice and intuitive, free and easy. And now here's the exacting part. So, and these particular points of mind are really for the person who has a hard time just kind of relaxing into that experience. So, again, the use of Tilopa 6 nails is the general points of mind, and the particular points of mind are as such, and these get rather specific. So, so holding the mind on a visual object. So if your mind is not able to be still, right, in that way, just using Tilopa 6 nails, then to focus your attention on, so in this text they say a piece of wood or a small pebble in front of you, and hold your mind there. That's the first point. So we can kind of, of course, expand that to, so like, I'm sitting in front of a couple bookshelves, and there's all this random stuff on one of them, including a Christmas card bent in half. And so just gently placing my awareness through my visual consciousness onto this object. And again, using these kind of, beautiful instructions from Tilopa to just hold it gently, allow everything to relax. As I focus on this card. No big deal, right? No, we don't have to make oil from squeezing sand. So, now there's going to be a variety of similar things. So, set out an object of the Tathagata, an image, of the Tathagata, adorned with the major and minor marks, or imagine one. If dullness, sunkenness, or vagueness arises, direct your mind one-pointedly to his Ushnisha, right? So this, this little weird, ball on the top of his head. Or the curl of hair between his eyebrows, and rest there, right? So this is kind of like what I was saying about the gaze before. So if we're agitated, if we're dull, feeling like we're sinking, etc., vague, and even, bored, focus your awareness on the Ushnisha of a visualized Buddha. Or the little hair between his brow. If our mind is wild and scattered, tremendous thoughts arise, direct your mind one-pointedly to his navel, to downward, or to the Dharma chakras on his feet, with these, wheels of Dharma on his feet, and rest there. When there's neither dullness nor wildness, direct your mind one-pointedly to his entire body, or to the knot of eternity in his heart center, and rest there. The individual excellent major marks can be visualized from top to bottom and from bottom to top while you contemplate them. So that's one option. And so before I go any further, it's also important to kind of highlight that Karmapa is not saying, first do one, then the next, then the next, then the next, then the next. It's rather that you should really do what feels most appropriate. So these are all kind of like these do become progressively more subtle, right? But we've got to liberate our mind from this progressive, like, step by step, lam rim kind of thing. We're really just trying to skillfully connect with whatever technique associated with resting the mind works for us. And so the next one, he says, is direct your mind to a butter lamp about 4 finger widths high. Right, so you could do a butter lamp or a candle. So on that shelf, if I had a candle, I could do that. Just allow yourself to focus your mind on the flame. Direct your mind to the empty space contained in a hole about the size of the palm of your hand, or as large or as small as convenient. So if you're meditating in a house with a hole in the wall, you can do that. Just focus. Just rest. Or he says, draw the 3 syllables of the body, speech, and mind of all the Buddhas, a white Om, a red Ah, and a blue Hum, and put them before you. And holding your mind on them becomes the practice. Yes, well, don't, next time you punch a wall pane, just leave that hole. Or Karmapa goes on to say, holding your mind on a dot, draw in white, red, or blue, or whatever is convenient, which is placed before you, or on one visualized or a visualized dot in front of you, and hold your mind on whichever one feels good. So red dot, yellow dot, blue dot, a green dot. Let's see. So holding your mind on a dot, drawn in white, red, or blue, or whatever is convenient, which is placed before you or visualized in front of you, and focus your mind on that. Is that good, Shane? And so Karmapa goes on to say, although there are many similar points, they're all included in above, right? So he's already been very generous by, giving us a variety of things, but basically says, whatever, works. So let's say you live, in Santa Cruz, to go out into the beautiful landscape there and use the trees. Or the beach, use a cloud in the sky, or the line of the horizon. Okay, so go back to that. So draw the 3 syllables of body, speech, and mind of the Buddhas, a white Om, a red Ah, or a blue Hum, and put them before you. So, a piece of paper. And then hold your mind on them. So one of the most beautiful things about Bokor Rinpoche's monastery was that its location. So it's in this town of Darjeeling district, just up from the plains. So India, like the plain, so the kind of central portion of India is quite flat, And then as you start to get to the, foothills of the Himalayas, there's this dramatic rise, right? And so um, there's this amazing dramatic rise, and Bokor Rinpoche's monastery was situated very close to kind of the end of that rise. And this was actually a place that was frequented by the Mahasiddha Maitrepa, a great Mahamudra teacher. And so Maitrepa was known to have spent time practicing there, which is one of the reasons why Bokor Rinpoche's monastery was there, and this large statue of Maitrepa there, which was quite beautiful. But when I would go practice there, I when the weather was not good, I would practice indoors, but most of the time I would go outside. And there were these magnificent places where you could go, find a rock or some grass or something and sit and see for, basically like an incalculable distance. And so it's just this vast, vast horizon. And to just sit and use space as the referent. It's so powerful. So if you have that opportunity, given where you live, I invite you to do that. If you live near the ocean, practice looking out at that vast horizon. Or we can be like, Bodhidharma, our Zen friend, and just use the wall. And just, so anyway, Karmapa is pointing out that there are many, many different things. And so he says, although there are many similar points, they're all included in the above. If you hold your mind using any one of these that you are comfortable with, that will be sufficient. Okay? So don't freak out. You don't need to master all of them. And he says, you do not have to use all of them, one after another. Like, you don't have to do that. So, check yourself before you wreck yourself. So then he goes on to say, as a fixed nature to these ways of resting is not established anywhere, do not hold on to any state of mind. If your mind is still, let it rest. If it goes, let it go. Do not stop it. Let it wander free. Completely cut all discursive thought, such as thinking, this is meditation. This is not meditation. And hope that mind will be still and fear that it will not. So don't be afraid if your mind is active. Don't prefer stillness. Right? Don't try to let go. I don't know, sometimes people say, well, why are there so many don'ts? But a lot of these meditation instructions are kind of built through this reinforcement of like positive negation. Everything will be pointed out by us telling you what not to do, right? So don't chase. Don't project something, that which is preferred onto everything. Just rest. Just let everything settle. If it's still, let it rest. If it goes, let it rest. So Kungo writes, even at my most challenging jobs, I was always thankful I was able to gaze at the sky or the ocean and have some perspective during it all. Yes. Yeah. And so this process of just, learning how to drop it. Drop expectation. Drop preference. And, it's really only in a state of rest, relaxation, that we can do that effectively without, holding on tight, without getting all agitated about, this thing or that thing or preferred kind of experience. So, he goes on to say, if the meditation object moves or breaks, or your eyes can no longer focus, or whatever, stop looking at it. So, I mean, this is for people who I guess maybe take things way too literally. So, if the cloud that you were looking at disappears, or if the cloud breaks, or your eyes have become so dried, it's like a SpongeBob SquarePants cartoon. You can't focus. Just chill. That's fine. Stop looking. Look into space at the level of your eyes. Right, so straight ahead. And rest loosely in its own way. Let your mind rest loosely in its own way. Right? And part of that is really this kind of practice of learning how to have confidence in the practice. In its own way, not a specific way. Not my way, its own way. Not the ancient Indian way, not the Tibetan way, its own way. Just let it be. Not creating a reference point of meditating on this or that. Simply do not wander. Don't make something out of nothing. Not stained by any dullness or sunkenness, that downward feeling. Rest directly in clear insight. Clear insight, so knowingness. And clear awareness. Rigpa. Leaving the meditation when it is going well, practice again and again with clarity and joy in frequent short sessions. It is important to train in this way, in a way that does not bring discouragement, taking frequent breaks. This is like the best part. Leave, when you're feeling good, that's when you stop it. Don't be like, oh man, my whole practice fell apart. I'm such a loser. Like I suck. When is it all going to get through this thick skull? I wish I had instructions that would get through this thick skull. And then stop there. Because like the next session, you're going to be like, oh my God, man, that last session sucked, and I don't know if I'm so busy. I could either watch TV or do something else or meditate. Well, that last time was terrible. Just really reinforced how badly I feel about myself. Are you really going to practice? So, practice with joy, practice with lightness, again and again with clarity in short sessions. Again, like there's this other kind of like fallacy that like we need to just go so deep and put all of our effort and all of our energy into practice, otherwise you're not doing anything. And that's wrong. So it's not about the quantity, right? It's really about learning how to have confidence in the fact that we can just come right back. It's not like we, are taking a journey where every day we start from the same point and then we have to walk all the way, go to where we were yesterday in our last meditation session. Like that's this kind of like, rooted in a very profound misunderstanding of what mind is all about. We don't need to go long distances. So Payne writes, does leaving it where it's all good apply to sadhana and visualization practices as well? Sometimes I'm not done with the text, but I feel like Dutsi Tsunami has washed over everything. Yeah, I mean, it's it depends a little bit. So it depends on the nature of the sadhana. Let's say you're doing kind of a sadhana with kind of a particular. I mean, I'm not saying Mahamudra is not profound, but a particularly profound sadhana like Vajrayogini. And you start the practice. You're doing, the construction of the visualization, mantra recitation, and if you're just like, oh, okay, man, like I'm done, and you just stop it right in the middle, like that's not necessarily the best thing. It's good with some of these things to see it through to completion, but it doesn't mean that you can't end the session there, right? So if all of a sudden, like it's feeling like it's done, and that is good, then you can dissolve the visualization, do the whatever kind of completion stage practices happen at the end of the practice, dedicate the merit, and you're done. But the I wouldn't stop a sadhana right in the middle and go to the bar, unless you're Varupa. He would be doing the sadhana at the bar. So hopefully that's helpful. So you can end the session when it's feeling full. When you're feeling full, when you're feeling done, that's fine to end the whole session, but close it properly. Yeah. So, and so Anika writes, this is helpful. I was trying to settle my very active mind during both my meditation sessions today. I felt like I wasn't doing it right because my mind wasn't quiet. Yeah, so mind is active. I mean, we're not trying to become a rock. We're trying to be able to understand the nature of our mind. And so sometimes that mind is going to be very reactive. It could be all sorts of things. Could be it could be any kind of reaction, right? An emotional reaction. It could be, I was actually just thinking about, the other day with the kind of invasion of the capital. Imagine being in that situation there. It was hard enough to kind of fully get one's mind around, watching it, on social media or on, television or whatever, or reading about it in real time as it unfolded. It's kind of like, but, thought activity was most likely produced in that moment. And that's fine. And so be with that thought activity. Or, for some reason, it causes an experience of complete cessation of thought. Resting complete cessation of thought. But understand that one is not necessarily preferred than the other. Right? The same way, we'll use like being in love. Like we can be in love and feel a whole host of emotions. And when somebody asks you, well, what is being in love like? You're not going to say, well, it's this one thing. It's I wouldn't even know how to answer that. And so our mind, is equally as variegated, as that. And so what is mind like? Well, sometimes it's wonderful, sometimes it's horrible. Right? In terms of the nature of thought that arises, the frequency with which it becomes disturbed, the great periods of time where it might not be disturbed. It's very hard to describe that. So I want to address, I guess one next point, and then we'll pause until next week. But this is called holding the mind on other sensory objects. So, having gained some experience with, the processes shared up until this point, In regard to sound, which is the object of the ears, smell, which is the object of the nose, taste, which is the object of the tongue, and tactile sensation, which is the object of the body, so forth. Focus on what you hear and so forth in turn. With respect to those sounds, smells, and so forth, direct your mind to just that distinct sound, strong smell, and so on. Not wandering. Focus on them. Focus on them with the iron hook of your mindfulness. Just let the mind rest naturally without doing any analysis of good or bad, big or small, and so forth. Hold the mind on whatever sense object is workable. So sound. I've actually done this, focus on sound in the jails with back when I used to work as a volunteer with people in custody, and then obviously much more recently working with correctional staff. Jails are pretty interesting places in terms of the sounds. There's so many different kinds of sounds, and as you move through, a jail, you might hear clanging of gates, different kinds of things. If there's an alarm, you'll hear the alarm. But when you stop and you sit, and we can even just do this in our homes right now. Let's do this for 2 minutes. Allow yourself to settle. And then bring your awareness to all of the sounds. So, of course, the sound of my voice. Perhaps there's sound, perceived sound of ringing in our ears. Perhaps there are other sounds coming from inside this room, or wherever you are. Sounds coming from outside of the room where you are right now. Perhaps outside of the building where you are. Noticing the atmospheric sounds. Just allow yourself to stretch out. And rest in open awareness. That knowing cognizance, recognition. Sound. So it's amazing, and Lieber, super happy to see you. So, right, you love using sensory object anchors in meditation, especially when feeling dissociated, disembodied, / resistant. Yeah, there's that. And then, real briefly, over the course of learning who we are, right? We kind of learn how we relate to these things. I think the thing that I love so much about using sensory objects is the luxury of our ordinary life. The amount of sound and the range and how far, how beautiful just the sound arising is. It's just always floors me. I used to, when I was in college, had a job for a little while working in a tea salon, and we had hundreds of different kinds of tea, and so people would come and buy the loose tea, and then there was a place where you could have a tea service, but you'd have 100 different tins of tea, and in having to sell it, I'd have to kind of get acquainted with the smell And each tea, and I actually in Darjeeling in India, like it's like Darjeeling where Darjeeling tea is from. You just go to these places and you smell each one and pick up on lots of different little things, you know, or wine, for people who drink wine, like how just the flavor profile, but anything we really taste, like watching, with just open awareness of how taste changes. But then there's also temperature, like the temperature on our skin, or even the clothing on our body. And this is the best. I mean, ever like we, we'll say, "Oh man, I'm bored. Like there's nothing going on," and like that is exactly not true. Like everything is going on. The whole world, the whole universe. Much of it is in our own head. So the use of all of this is just stunning. And so Kungaritz, I find the rare time I'm outside the city limits, the silence is quite something. I don't notice the background hum of the city until it's gone sometimes. Yeah. And sometimes that stillness is just, like being out in the countryside at night. And then you hear the country sounds. That's this whole other thing. Or being by the ocean. I mean, I love being by the ocean. And so just the sound of the ocean, nonstop, going. Or like, camping and birds in the morning. So, this is a really lovely way of using practice as well. Is engaging everything. So just as, in the past, I described that, essentially all appearance is, color, light, and all of these experiences. To just be able to kind of come back to direct experience of appearance. Right? But appearance in this context is not just visual appearance. It's how we experience everything with all of our sense faculties. And of course, not everything is pleasant. Right? However, even a difficult thing like difficult smells, like, to really get into what we're smelling and experiencing that. The first time we smell something unpleasant, we could be like, I don't want to smell it, get that out of here. But then if there's no choice, then it's just resting, with that smell. Something to be quite excited about. So I'm going to end this one section right here. Karmapa says that, again, to conclude your session with while clarity is still fresh, then take a rest. Right? So we don't want to like crash the plane into the ground and we're just like, oh man, this is so unclear. I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm tired, I'm dull, okay, I guess I'll end here. Like, we don't want to do that. So conclude your session while clarity is still fresh. Then take a rest. Don't wait until you're bored. I love you, Karmapa. Don't wait until you're bored. Right? Don't wait until you're jaded. Don't wait until you're like, oh man, I wonder what's on Instagram right now. Like, let me go look. What are people putting up? Between sessions, don't let your mindfulness go completely. The gaze of your eyes should be cast downward. As for your body, whether walking or sitting, and for speech, whether talking or speaking, do not do these either strongly or too much. So don't blah, 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 like I'm doing, blah, 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 blah. or thinking so much about everything. Just experience. As for the mind, cut the stream of discursive thoughts. You will gradually become accustomed to meditation in doing this. So this is where there's like such irony in these massive books on meditation. It's not even that they're on meditation, it's more that they're, I don't know what, just a lot of words. So rather than get involved with a lot of words, allow yourself to settle, to relax, and come into direct relationship with everything you're experiencing. Don't worry. This whole thing has a way of sorting itself out, And right before I end, I do believe this, that our mind is oriented towards liberation. And so this means that we cannot help but move towards awakening. So if we can start putting down like these ideas that like I need to again, that I'm not good, I'm a terrible person, nothing, I need to work so hard, and rather begin to approach this from a perspective of, this is inevitable. I'm going to get there slowly, just, come back to mind, come back to the experience of anger when anger arises, come back to, irritation when irritation arises, come back to everything. It doesn't matter. Nothing is, nowhere so far have we been told, like, don't do this because that's the wrong thing to do. The one thing that we're being oriented around is a technique to be open and fresh and free, to not hold on too tight, to not kind of get our laser-like focus too rigidly focused on a particular thing, and just rather kind of just ease back into the couch practice. Put your feet up onto the coffee table of devotion. Lean your head back into the pillow of liberation, and just relax. So anyway, with that, I really want to thank everyone for coming and being here and for your practice. And in this moment, I dedicate any merit from this practice session to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings, especially those who have just died. May all beings begin to appreciate that every single sensory experience that arises is the ground for profound Mahamudra practice. May all beings eventually obtain that state. Thank you all.